don't know if you've ever heard that expression, be careful what you wish for. Israel had been brought out of the land of Egypt under the direction of Moses and Aaron. And while it should never have taken 40 years to get from Egypt to the promised land, that was the reality that they faced. Because along the way, they kept finding excuses why God really, well, God was pretty good, but, and, or. So this idea that they were chosen by God wasn't always convenient, because God kept asking them to do things. Go here, worship me, here, listen to Moses, my servant. And they do it for a while, and then they kind of start wandering off and get lost in the wilderness. 40 years, and the generation that had left Egypt died. And Moses, the servant of God, died at the age of 120. And so we come to the end of the book of Joshua, and there's already been a lot of conflict and the conquest narrative, what biblical scholars call it, the conquest of the Holy Land was underway and would continue throughout the book of Judges. Well, just before Joshua dies, at the ripe age of 110, so since we don't have anybody that's 110, I expect all of you to be out there leading the people to the promised land. Joshua, with one more opportunity to address Israel, tells them, you've got to be sure that this God that you're worshiping, that you claim to be following, is worthy of your devotion. Because it's easy. I mean, here we are, the 21st century, and yeah, we say we worship God, but let's be honest, there's a lot of other things clamoring for our attention. The Old Testament, the Ten Commandments, they say, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Well, that doesn't leave any room for anything else, does it? I mean, but again, let's be honest. I love cheesecake. Maybe you love the Cubs, or you love the Dallas Cowboys. You might love your spouse. I hope you do, but let's just assume you do. Is God included in the things and the people that you love? Because if God is present in your relationships, or rather, if God is present in your heart, God will be present in your relationships. And yet, we keep finding things and activities and pursuits that pull us away. Sometimes reluctantly, but sometimes we go racing after these other things, the other relationships. And that's what Joshua is addressing with Israel. I mean, they had some serious work ahead of them. It wasn't going to be a cakewalk into this promised land, the land flowing with milk and honey. But Joshua is telling them, if you are devoted to God, it'll work out. It won't be easy, but it'll work out. And he gives them the opportunity to say, you know, we've heard your sales pitch and thank you, but I think we'll make it on our own. He gives them that opportunity. And as one, they say, no, we will serve God. I mean, imagine yourself for a moment that you're Joshua. You're standing before the assembly of the elders and the leaders of the tribes of Israel. And you're hearing this word of the shout of affirmation coming back at you, raining over your head. And as these words are rippling down over your ears, I mean, I was getting goosebumps just reading that a few moments ago. This idea that we are one in our affirmation of God. That this isn't some simple, sending in your membership dues once a year and getting your membership card and now you're done. This isn't some simple activity, a hobby that you can take up or put down at any time. Joshua is saying to them, this is a lifestyle. This is a not just an occupation, this is a vocation. That this is the life you're choosing. And Joshua hears these words. But sometimes we say things that we don't really mean. I mean, that's why on the commercial that you listen to, all these drugs that you hear about being advertised, or the cars, or anything being advertised, it seems like nowadays, that after the sales pitch, they give you all the reasons why you shouldn't use that drug, or that you shouldn't drive that car in the way that they just showed you it can drive. Or, it's easy to buy into the groupthink, the excitement of this affirmation. And he says, okay, but you can't do it because this isn't going to be easy. It's one thing to shout affirmation and to hear your neighbors shouting it. But did you mean it yourself? One of the things that we hear about from our evangelical brethren is that you need a personal relationship with Jesus. And they're right. You must have a relationship with God. I mean, if you're going to be a Christian. I mean, that's, if you don't have a relationship with God, then this is just a club. But as my James Logan, history professor at Wesley Seminary, like to say, it's impossible. It is impossible, echoing the words of John Wesley, to be a solitary Christian. You cannot do it. Otherwise, what you're engaged in is devotions or pursuit of a philosophy. So when Joshua says, you can't do this because this is not a simple task. Wow. The people respond one more time with, yes, we understand, and we will do this together. We will do this because this matters. We will do this because our ancestors who were led out of Egypt knew what they were talking about. They saw with their own eyes the acts of God. And they understood that this discipleship, this pursuit of God, was a lifetime, not a singular event. So Joshua says, you're a witness against yourself. You made the promise. You heard the ears, or the words. It's like whenever I do weddings, something happens. The couple is standing before me and, oh, they're in love. I mean, gosh, there's pretty flowers. There's, got those love goggles on. And I tell folks that the moment they say I do, something changes. The reality of what they have just said hits them. I tell people that anybody can get married. I mean, just go down to the courthouse and get a piece of paper and have some random stranger on the street read you the words and you're done. Just sign your name and you're married. Getting married is easy. Being married takes effort. So that's what Joshua is offering to them. Saying you believe in God is easy. Following God takes effort. So a monument, a pillar, an Ebenezer is raised up as a physical witness. And that's, as I say that, I realize that's what our building across the street is. It's a physical reminder that we have committed ourselves to the love and service of God. I mean, that's why Suzanne was on her knees the other day, trimming that yew bush or yew tree on the Gillespie Avenue entrance. I mean, she didn't have to do that. That wasn't a religious act, but it was an act of devotion to the church that represents God in the world. And that's what each one of you are. You are a physical reminder to everyone that sees you that God is part of your life. So in the days to come, as we approach winter and what promises or appears likely to be a difficult winter for our nation, and indeed throughout the world, remember that you're not alone, even though you may be isolated. You are not insignificant, even though you might be feel it. But the God who called Israel out of Egypt, who called the disciples out of their fishing boats, who called the prophets and the martyrs, calls you. Know that you are with God, and God is with you each and every step of the way. Amen.